News Now is brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, Docomo Pacific, island-wide, worldwide. The choice is clear. Micronesia Renewable Energy. Go solar for zero money down. And Colgate Optic White. Whiter teeth in 1 week. From broadcast to broadband. News you can trust. From the Pacific News Center in Higatya, Guam, and broadcasting live in Saipan, here's Clint Rigel and Janella Carrera. PNC Sports with Blake Watson and Rebecca Kim with weather. With your News Now.
Good evening. It's Friday, October the 10th, and you're watching PNC's News Now. I'm Janella Carrera.
And I'm Clint Rigel. Half a day, and thanks for tuning in. Topping your news tonight, some breaking news to report. Just minutes before news time, PNC has been able to confirm that the Guam Memorial Hospital has just been placed on lockdown because of a reported missing baby. June Perez, GMH spokesperson, says GMH is in code pink, which means no one enters and no one leaves. This is a developing story. We'll have more for you on this as we continue to gather information. Again, GMH, the Guam Memorial Hospital, is on lockdown due to a reported missing baby.
In other news, a Guam police officer has been caught on tape harassing another employee of the Guam Police Department. It happened at the Records and ID Division. The officer, who a source identified as Officer Ron Corpus, can be heard yelling profanities and making threats at a clerk.
You ever die before me? I'm gonna spit in your face. And I'm gonna go to your grave and piss all over it. God, man.
2-1. It's not clear when the incident happened, but Guam Police spokesman Officer Paul Tapau confirms that the man yelling in the video is, in fact, a police officer. It occurred at GPD's Records and ID section for law enforcement officers. Tapau says the law enforcement officials have their own Records and ID section that's separate from the public. He also says GPD is now conducting an internal investigation on the matter. He notes the victim in the video had immediately reported the incident to her supervisor.
Yes, I believe shortly thereafter the incident had occurred. The clerk from the record section had brought the attention up to their immediate supervisor, at which time an incident report was generated and channeled to the Operations Bureau, which was forwarded to the Chief of Police.
In the video, the officer can be heard saying he would spit in the woman's face and that he would urinate on her grave. Here's that clip once again with the woman's reaction.
You're asking for favors and yet they expect us to drop what we're doing and help them. I don't give a because mother-in-law. You gotta remember, I have a boss that I answer to. He can go to hell. No, I'm gonna call this. He can go to hell. Now I know if anything happens to me out there, then he's my first suspect. I'm gonna let my family know.
What about the person in the video who's yelling and making threats? Are you able to identify who he is?
Because of the administrative issues, I can't disclose any information as to who was involved or who was also the attending clerk behind the desk.
Officer Tapau emphasized that law enforcement officials, particularly police officers, are held to a higher standard of professionalism and that GPD does not condone this type of behavior.
There is a new development in the Agababa murder case. The Attorney General's office says that they have evidence that Alan Agababa sought the help of another person to take care of an inheritance issue. Agababa is accused of murdering his mother, Shelley June Bernstein, a flight attendant for United Airlines. The AG's office filed a motion to offer additional evidence. That evidence, says Prosecutor Gerald Henderson, shows that Agababa approached a man named Bobby Hall. The defendant told Hall he had an inheritance issue and that he wanted to take care of it, court documents state. Adding further that Agababa asked Hall if Hall knew where he could get a gun with a silencer or chemicals. According to Hall, Agababa asked for his help sometime between February to April of 2013. Bernstein was found dead in her home in August of 2013. Police believe Agababa plotted his mother's death so that he could get her life insurance benefits.
Even the Attorney General believes murder suspect Keith Garrido deserves treatment while he waits out the conclusion of his case. Garrido is HIV positive.
He should be and is entitled to whatever treatment he's supposed to get, regardless of whether he pleads guilty or not.
Garrido agreed to plead guilty in exchange for HIV treatment on Wednesday. Department of Corrections officials have previously stated that in order for prisoners to get medication, they must be an inmate, not a detainee. Detainees are those whose cases have not yet concluded or are on pre-trial status. Since Garrido was arrested in November of 2012 for the murder of Nancy Muffness, he has not received any treatment for HIV. Garrido also allegedly assaulted another woman while he escaped from prison. It's not clear if the woman was sexually assaulted or whether she was notified that Garrido was HIV positive. We asked AG Lenny Rapadas about that.
You know, these are issues that impinge on health and health care, and there may be some HIPAA concerns here. So these are questions I can't answer.
Okay. He also sent questions to DOC Director Jose San Agustin on what their policies are for handling HIV or AIDS prisoners, but he refused to comment on the matter.
Last night, the Gutierrez-Gumatautau team spoke at the Guam Community College as part of its ongoing political forum series. Here's more.
Lieutenant Governor candidate Gary Gumatautau is not as well known as his running mate, former Governor Carl Gutierrez. So he began last night's forum by telling students a little bit about himself.
I'm self-made. I came from a family that didn't have anything. My father was in the Navy. When he joined the Navy, he was what they call a TN, a trainee. In those days, you didn't have enough money to support a family, so we lived in public housing in Virginia.
Gumatautau and Gutierrez both painted a picture of their humble beginnings versus Governor Eddie Calvo's wealthy business background.
And that night when I was announced that I was the winner, I cried because finally, God, you gave me the opportunity to help so many of our people here in Guam that have been marginalized, set aside. Nobody wants to give those people up at Honolulu, Astumbu, Matagua, any water, power, telephone, or any utilities. They just concentrated everything down in the Gamut, Tamuni, Mongmong, Toktumaiti. Street lights galore. These people didn't have water. But I made that commitment that I was going to do that immediately. And I did.
And Gutierrez took issue with what he is calling an unfair caricature that the Calvo Tenorio campaign has painted of him.
You told me that I used the Guam Memorial Hospital as a dumping ground for employees. You look there. All of the numbers that are there from when it was my turn, it's about 930 employees at Guam Memorial Hospital. He's got 1,200 employees up there. Why is he telling the people untruth by saying that I burned the Guam Memorial Hospital? Look at the fact.
Both the Gutierrez-Gumatautau team and the Calvo Tenorio team will be able to face off at the Guam Medical Association's gubernatorial debate at the Hyatt Regency on Tuesday at 6 p.m.
Guam's abortion rate is falling. In fact, within a 30% decrease between 2013 and the previous year. The pro-life Esperanza group is anxious to introduce a living, breathing reason they are passionate about. PNC's Rizal Romanes has a story.
Meet 8-year-old Caitlin. Beautiful, healthy, and athletic, she is also a child that almost wasn't. Before she was born, her mother took a bunch of pills hoping to induce an abortion. Instead, the woman went into labor and delivered a live 3.5-pound baby. Caitlin was abandoned by her birth mother, but thanks to a social worker, she was connected with loving and caring adoptive parents when she was just 34 days old. These days, Caitlin is a third grader at St. Peter's Catholic School in South Carolina and a budding martial artist who will test for her brown belt in Taekwondo at the end of the year. Her adoptive father, Mike, says they consider themselves blessed to have raised such a great child like Caitlin. The Esperanza Project hopes that her story will help inspire others to consider their options before making that very final decision to end a life that hasn't even begun. Rizal Romanes, PNC News.
All right, and keep watching PNC because when News Now continues. Is GSA charging too much for scrap metal? We take a look.
And Guam loses its ownership of the Challenger Deep. We'll be back with more of your News Now after this.
Hey Guam, be sure to stay tuned for sports, FD alumni game, volleyball playoff opening night, and a first round bye. Oh my! Coming up, PNC Sports Report tonight.